your first sitting with Beloved as if you could breathe underwater. And I love that.
Yeah.
Could you, just for the audience, give a little taste of what it was like when you first met Arida, aside from the unicycle?
What you mean?
The
Are you
darshan.
asking when I first sat with
Sat
him,
with him.
what the sittings were like?
Darshan.
Well, you know, Ed, that's an interesting question, because there were some ways in which his process developed and changed over the years. But there was a much more fundamental way in which that very first moment of sitting with him contained everything. And it was a completely life-changing gift. His communication, silent communication, unmoving communication of a state of being that is universal and transcendent and utterly free and entirely embracing, yet without any difference in the embrace. It's so paradoxical to feel so embraced and so touched so deeply, and yet there isn't someone else apart doing the touching or the embracing. So there's a tremendous response that brought up out of my heart that I had no idea existed. I think some of this, you're discussing earlier, childhood sensitivity to suffering and a kind of childhood questioning for me of there's got to be something more than what I'm seeing around me here. And so sitting in the room with him, there it is, the more. And so because that gift of pure being that he miraculously, mysteriously is able to convey so powerfully and so convincingly, just liberated me to allow that same being that I'm not different from to respond, to rush out in liberated response. And I think it was that liberated and grateful and happy response to his powerful, powerful communication of this core or source universal condition that just, I couldn't take my eyes off him. Or I couldn't turn away from him. He was the only real thing.
Right.
So I don't know if that
answers
your question.
Very well. But it's also a universal devotee's response is that he is the supreme attractive force.
Yes.
And so...
so your life becomes an exercise of gratitude then.
Right.
Which is a very wonderful way to live.
But as you point out very well in the book, that there are two sides to that grace. There are two sides to that light that you say he actually, in the book, he turned his physical form, turned to light. And in that light, the radiance and the power of the heart is felt. But also, as he points out, the light is also a fire.
Yes.
And in part of the process of being in the company of somebody as supreme in that radiance is a purification process.
Yeah. Well, this gets to why I felt the story had to be so personal, because I had very real baggage that I brought with me into his company, and very real things I needed help sorting out about just being a human being and being a woman, all kinds of questions about life and all kinds of unresolved issues that I brought with me. And I have that initial moment of sitting with him where just this, your whole being rushes to open in gratitude for the revelation that he's giving you. That gratitude has deepened over the years because I've seen, and he used to tell us this, that spiritual force has an innate intelligence of its own. So it works in your life, as you say, like a fire to purify, but it works with great intelligence to bring about the crises and provoke the changes that you actually need to be open and more responsive to receiving what it is that's being offered. And some of that was so gritty for me, and I have come over the decades to feel so grateful to him for being such a hero in helping me in such specific ways, for being this sublime genius of prior and formless communication of being and bliss. Words fail, but then also to be equally genius at bringing that force into your life and putting you right up against the lessons that I needed, and taking a chance on me by putting me up against the hard stuff. And I just became more and more grateful to him for the intelligence of the process that he continually took me through and continues to.
Right. And while you're talking, I'm reminded that it wasn't always, you never had the full blessing all the time to be in the company of somebody like Adida, who was Adida, but also I'm reminded of you having a period of time when you were a 5-year period of time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, almost 6.
Almost 6 years, when you were, for various reasons, not in his, or did not see him. Oh. And now, and just to add to that, here he is not embodied. Mm-hmm. So, just to put that attractive principle and the gifts that you had, because during that period of time, and I don't want to speak for you, but that was the time that he was doing a teaching demonstration. So you were very fortunate to be in the demonstration, to learn about
all the crazy experimenting we did with our lifestyle over the early decades. Yes, I feel tremendously grateful.
Right.
I do. I mean, there's a lot of that was experimentation, and so therefore not something you necessarily need to repeat. But so much kind of humanizing wisdom came out of that.
I think he says you must become, this is all about becoming human, but you're also dealing with the first 3 stages of life here.
Well, yes, he was quite firm in telling us that you couldn't achieve the kind of spiritual advancement we all seem to be interested in without first becoming a real human being, right, and taking responsibility for love and work and sex and money and all those things. Not perfecting those things, but having a very basic and generally, in my experience, quite humbling self-understanding in all those areas. So, yeah, he didn't divorce the life of the spirit from the practicalities of human life. And I so valued that because I don't think I could have responded to anything that was abstract. I needed what he had to give.
Right. So not only personally, but you were in the company of a true genius.
Oh yeah, no question about that.
On any number of subjects and also levels of subjects. And in history time, prior to even, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he could look at a book and just get it.
Yes. And I watched him do that with people quite a bit too. He said he could read your forehead.
I do know that there were a number of times devotees would hold objects of various people and do psychic kinds of things, but that's really a whole nother topic right there.
Yeah.
But I did want to just talk about that period of time when you had so much interaction and service in his company, not only in California, but in Hawaii and Fiji. So your time in his service, intimate service, covers 33 years?
33 years that I knew him while he was in the body. It continues, but there were 33 years while he was alive here with us in that particular human way.
And so, just to go back to that period of time when you were, I don't know where you were, but you were walking down the street and you had just, you broke down because you knew that you hadn't been in his company for 5 or 6 years.
I hadn't seen him for really too long a time, and it really broke my heart.
Yeah. So I would just want to take that and then put it into this post-Mahasamadhi time.
Uh-huh.
How has the transition, having been in the physical company of somebody that supremely attractive, and then not then having that, how has that transition been? I would imagine it's quite difficult.